Welcome to Anything Goes. I'm your 514 host, Madison.
And I'm your 911 host, Caden. I almost pulled that off. Right.
It's been a while. Well, I mean, not for them, because we pre-recorded a bunch of episodes, but we are back. Not that you would have missed us, but when was the last time we recorded? It was back in March, right?
Yep, it was the spring.
It's been about 6 months, so I think we've forgotten how to do this. I know I've forgotten how to do this.
I don't know if I ever knew how to do it in the first place.
I have my doubts about myself too. Especially since I found out a couple more episodes are broken and I need to go and fix them. If you've listened, I think it's the 9 episode, which sucks. I think the 9 episode is currently broken and it like breaks up in the middle.
Rip to all my nines.
Yeah, so I have to go back through and fix them, and I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna try uploading the audio because I have the audio, and it's completely fine when I play it through my laptop. So I'm gonna see if it's maybe just a problem with Spotify or something. I don't know. Um, I'm working on it. I highly doubt I'll be able to fix it because I'm not tech savvy. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't help you there.
Yeah. So
I just Google everything.
so some disclaimers. We are not safe for work and we do cuss and stuff. So if you're listening at work, you should probably put some headphones on.
Unless you have a really cool workplace or your workplace is your living room.
Yeah, that's true. Um, I'm working with kids now, so I cannot. We are LGBT friendly. We are very gay and stuff. You're not gay anymore, but I'm gay.
Damn, I was so cool for such a short amount of time.
We are not Enneagram professionals. We're just Enneagram enthusiasts. So we're not certified or licensed or anything like that. We are not Christian. So if you are looking for a Christian specific Enneagram podcast, this one might not be for you, but you could still stick around for the info. So
Yeah.
won't hurt you. You have posted something in here.
I, you know, I like how you have very like well put together notes, and mine is very usually just like I have no idea what the fuck is going on, and also there's this one thing that I found while we're looking that's like wild. Okay, but off track, I do want to say if you are an Enneagram professional, can you please, for the love of God, stop writing primers and start writing more advanced in-depth resources? Because I found 5 million primers, but it's so hard to find things that are more like, what are the different types of triads and how do things interact? And and I'm so disappointed about the fact that no one has like an Enneagram book that also is like reaching like critiques of systems of power. Like, do you think how fucking cool it would be if someone did like Enneagram mixed with critical race theory or like Enneagram mixed with feminism and just like put that out there? I'm just gonna push a pitch for that. So I don't know if we have any like famous Enneagram people listening, but please write a really cool book for me to read.
So the problem with that is that I think there are very few people who are interested in it. You know, a lot of the like main people are just like Christian and like, how can this help me develop spiritually? So I think what has to happen is that we have to write that book. And I know you don't want to, but that's what we
This
have to
sounds like so much work. I'm also just like I'm not a professional. I'm like, just think about the amount of time it would take for me to learn all the things I need to know about the Enneagram to write a book, and then also learn all the things I need to know about like critical race theory or feminism to write that book, and then put it all together, and then actually write that book.
do. Yeah.
It's a
We
big,
we can do it though.
we could try. if you have your own hot takes on those intersections, send us an email because those are the conversations I want to have. Send us an email at anythinggoes@gmail.com. Shoot us a tweet. That's what they're called, right?
Yeah.
Oh, did I just date? I don't know if it's possible to date yourself as like younger than Twitter.
How old is Twitter?
Uh,
I know I was at least in high school.
right. But like everyone I know uses Instagram.
See, I don't even use Instagram very much. I have been on Reddit basically. Reddit's
Reddit's
what I scroll
interesting.
through. I don't like Instagram because I've it doesn't have the content that I'm looking for. I
It's
think
almost no content.
yeah, that's the problem. Is it's pictures and I don't know. I'm a 5. I want to read things. I want to like learn things. I don't want a picture book. I just,
I like my picture books.
I think the only people that I'm like I've got friends and family that I follow on Insta, and then I've got like empty planters who like teach me plant things. Like the Texas Bee Works lady, so I can learn about bees.
Hmm.
So I want to have bees. I want to have a garden and bees and chickens, and KJ wants none of these things.
You and you and Alyssa need to just go off into the woods together and start your own chicken farm or something. Me and KJ can hang back here in civilization.
But yeah, I want to live my cottagecore fantasy, and KJ just doesn't want to have anything to do with it. Granted, I have convinced her to let me have bees. She's okay with the bees as long as we have a large enough property. And I was like, yes. She is still not on board for the chickens. Um,
Yeah, I I'm not even on board for like a dog.
no.
Like
Uh,
I'm pretty far dragging my feet pretty far behind here.
yeah. KJ wants a dog. We're gonna be getting a dog soon. We almost got a dog.
I love other people's dogs, but they're like
Yeah.
children. I don't want to have
Yeah.
to take care of them.
Yeah. Hopefully
It's great.
by the next time you're able to visit or we're able to visit you, we'll have a dog and you can play with our dog. But it's
Yes.
hard. It's hard to get a dog.
Yeah, they're a lot of work.
Yeah. And like you have to be so careful about who you're getting them through and stuff. Um
Oh, yeah.
we we were all set up to get a dog and then like a couple days before we were about to get the dog, she let us know that he had like a hernia and was having back leg weakness and he might become lame and all these other things and we were like we don't have like the space or the like resources to deal with a lame dog, so we're gonna have to pull out. So we did that and yeah, but we're still looking. We want a Bernese mountain dog. So um check us out on Patreon because we have one of those and we have no monies. Um and the thing is I can't there are a couple services that I could pay for that would help improve the audio quality so that like when you guys are listening it just doesn't cut out randomly in the middle and you know but I don't have the money for that myself. So if y'all want it to be better, you're gonna have to chip in because we don't have a big enough audience to get like money from that. So if you're okay with the quality the way it is, then cool. If you want it to be better, then I'm already putting so much into it. I'm sorry. So you can find us on Patreon, and all the links are in our show notes. And the show notes on our website. If you're watching in Spotify and stuff, it cuts it off. So there's like a little statement and a link that you should be able to take to our actual website with the full show notes. So, do we want to do a brief life update?
Um, Shit, man. I don't know what there is to update. Uh,
You got a new job?
it's yeah. Well, I am starting at one eventually.
Hmm.
Uh, it's still COVID,
Yeah, it's
which
still
is
COVID.
a thing.
Um, oh, I
I'm
think
so happy that it's fall though. I was so sick and tired of it being like 90 degrees and humid. I don't know why I live somewhere. Why did I move somewhere with seasons? Like, I was living my best life in a place that just has like two seasons, which is really wet and slightly less wet. And then I moved somewhere with all the seasons and they're all really extreme.
um I okay. So, life update for me because I think I was stringing you guys along. I think I promised a life update. So, for anyone who actually cares, um, the reason we had to pre-record all those episodes is that KJ and I we're gonna hike the Appalachian Trail, which is supposed to take 6 months. Supposed to is the key word.
Did you get 6 hours into it?
Yes. Rude. But what happened is we were out there, we were going, we were trucking along. It was gonna be great. And then the day before like this incident happened, it had rained for like 2 days straight. And so I stepped on a loose rock and was not able to catch myself. And I fell onto a very sharp rock and it sliced my knee open. I had like a 4.5 inch, 4 to 4.5 inch gash, pretty much down to the bone of my knee. And I had to be put into a knee immobilizer and could not walk for or well, couldn't bend my knee for an entire month. I could walk during that time, but I had to like hobble around. So that ended the trail for us. We if you So the trail goes from Georgia to Maine. We didn't make it out of Georgia. It was very quick. But yes, it was more than 6 hours. Rude.
All I all I know is I was just living my life and I get this text message from you, which is like, we should talk later. I almost died today. And then you went completely radio silent for like a few hours because you were at the hospital. So I had to track down KJ's phone number and call her and be like, so I got this kind of concerning text message from Maddie, and I don't even know what like state you guys are in right now, but do I need to get a plane ticket? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, and I was out of it because it was awful. So I fall and my knee is just completely open and I can't walk. And I'm like losing a lot of blood, or at least it looked like a lot to me. I didn't need any like blood transfusions or anything like that, but like it definitely gushed quite a bit. And I went into shock and was very out of it. And yeah, KJ um has like PTSD trauma from it. Um it was a bad day. It was awful. But now we moved. We're up in Michigan. I'm substitute teaching until things get figured out, and that's where we are. Um, I can bend my knee again now. I can finally walk, and I can run too. It was a super long recovery, but yeah. So that happened. I don't know. I don't even know if you guys care. It'll be in the show notes.
Everyone skipped over everything.
Yeah, they skipped
It's like,
over.
get to the Enneagram.
Get to the Enneagram. Okay. So let's see. What else did we need to talk about for our announcements? Nothing. Okay. So we can move on to the question of the month. And so we asked you guys, and this was mainly directed to the ones, twos, and sixes who are in the Hornevian compliant triad. Our question was: is suffering a necessary part of the human condition? And what would people who never suffered be like? So, did you get any answers to this?
I'm gonna be honest, I forgot to ask it.
Yeah.
Um, I have an idea about how ones are going to respond.
Yeah.
My instinct is that I think for ones, the answer is, why the fuck would you ask that? No. Um, I think like ones punish themselves so much,
Mm-hmm.
and like in the very unhealthy levels, yes, they can be like, oh, well, you should also be like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not out of a sense of like, you also need to be suffering. It's like I'm suffering because I'm like this, so you should not be like this. You know? What'd your siblings say? The sixes.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even ask them. We can start with like twos. Um, I polled my partner, and my two said that yes, everyone needs to suffer because if people didn't, everyone would be assholes because suffering teaches humility.
Hmm.
So my two thinks that suffering is a necessary part of the human condition, and that if there was no suffering, everyone would just be assholes. Um, I disagree with this as a five, but I think a lot of our compliant groups are going to agree with yes. But I didn't get any compliant. Oh no, wait here. I did get a six on the
Hmm.
Reddits. So our sixth response was it's from Super Cat Nerd. Um, it reminds me of a tattoo I saw a picture of on Pinterest. It was a gravestone that said everything was perfect and nothing hurt. I think it illustrates the ridiculousness of the statement well. It's obviously unrealistic. Everyone goes through a degree of suffering in their life. I believe suffering is always a catalyst for change, and that change is the only thing that is inevitable in life. If you were always satisfied, you wouldn't want anything to change. It's obvious to most that your life would be boring if it was always the same, but less obvious to answer. How boring would your life be if no suffering ever took place?
Interesting that's what they think, that suffering, it has to be suffering that's the catalyst for change, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Like, because for me, in my like view of it, it's not like, okay, here's what it's I'm looking for. Oh, here we are. So we're talking about the compliant Hornevian group, right?
Mhm.
But Anne Gad calls them the conditional, specifically in relation to like how they interact with romantic and sexual things. But it's a good idea, I think, because it talks about there are conditions that have to be met before the person's need can be met. So for ones, it's like being good. For twos, it's the needs of the others. For sixes, it's like being dependable or making sure everything is safe, right?
Mhm.
But I think that it's a very specific type of like the base theory of it being conditional on something is present in all of them, but like there's a specific type of person who's like, yeah, but also the part of the condition is suffering, you know? Because
Mhm.
like suffering didn't have to be part of that equation.
Yeah.
And I think it says more about the like how that person has interacted with what they've set up as the conditions and how those conditions are maybe not things that they want to meet.
Yeah. It's very interesting how like my two was just like, yeah, suffering. Everyone needs it. And for me I was like, nah. Like in the hypothetical world where suffering doesn't exist, I don't think it would be necessary. And I don't think anyone would be assholes. Um I think well, I mean, they're probably there well, no, there couldn't be assholes because that would be suffering. That would mean suffering on other people. But let's say you could exist in a world with no suffering and people could still be assholes. I think that assholery breeds assholery,
Mm,
as in like, um, so like you know how abused people
Yeah.
will follow the cycle of either like marrying an abusive person or becoming an abuser themselves. I think that suffering only breeds more suffering. And in a world where if it was possible to make it so people didn't have to suffer, I don't think it would make them any more self-involved or anything like that. Because if we start children with like a fundamental basis of like this is what you should do, they're very malleable at that age.
Hmm.
And so like you can look at places, so let's take the mask thing for example. In Japan, it's normal that if you're just sick, you wear a mask. Or if there's a pandemic, you wear a mask, you know? Whereas in the US, that hasn't been conditioned in, and that's why we're having such an issue with people even just wearing masks. So I think you can teach empathy and all the things that would make people a good person without suffering.
Well, I think it's also interesting if you ask this question in the US, that has very Protestant roots, versus if you ask this question in another cultural context. Because for me, the idea that like you should suffer for the sake of suffering, because in my view, suffering doesn't actually, it's not productive at all.
Mhm.
It doesn't create like, KJ had a point about it teaching humility, but humility, like you can suffer for no reason in particular. In fact, plenty of people do. People who are the victims of abuse, there's no reason for that suffering. People who are the victims of sort of like systemic inequities, there's no reason for that suffering in the sense that like they did something or that their suffering will lead to better outcomes.
Mhm.
There's like plenty of ways to suffer that are pointless.
Mhm.
Um, so I think for me, it's the optional term suffering. I think everyone would agree that difficulty, right? That there's
Mhm.
certain things that are hard and we can do hard things, and that's like a useful lesson to learn. But that the specific perception that suffering is necessary is a lot. Like I've seen a lot of people who have that, and I think it's not just the Hornevian groups, but I think that the way that Hornevian groups are predisposed to buy into certain narratives about like how you should be and what you should be doing means that they're more predisposed to also believe it.
Mm. Um, okay. Do you want to move on? I think we answered it mostly, except I
Yeah,
didn't hear back from the ones. I didn't hear anything from any ones.
I don't know. I'll chime in if my sister ever responds. I think that she's gonna be like, oh fuck no.
Yeah.
But
Okay. All right. So, as you might have guessed, as I've mentioned before, we are discussing the Hornevian groups today. And the Hornevian groups are kind of interesting because Karen Horney, who kind of created the theory and stuff that we're going to discuss now, had pretty much nothing to do with the Enneagram. She was a psychoanalytic theorist, and she was just making other psychoanalytic theories, right? And eventually a bunch of the Enneagram like leaders and teachers of the time who were like researching and studying found her theory um, and adopted it into the Enneagram. And so, first of all, I highly recommend that anyone who wants to learn more about this go read up on her work specifically and not just in relation to the Enneagram, but it specifically because you're going to get a much broader sense of it and you're going to get it kind of straight from the horse's mouth and not just adapted into the Enneagram because a lot of the information is very useful for just anyone. And so, her theory, the base theory, was that everyone deals with anxiety and neuroses through three types of behavior. And it's behavior that moves you towards people, away from people, or against people. Um, and she kind of developed this around what she called the 10 neurotic needs. And so I'm going to go through those with you briefly. I'm not going to explain what they are because we're going to discuss them in each episode. We're going to break them down a little bit more. But the 10 neurotic needs are the neurotic need for affection and approval, the neurotic need for a partner who will take over one's life, the neurotic need to restrict one's life to narrow borders, the neurotic need for power, the neurotic need to exploit others, the neurotic need for prestige, the neurotic need for personal admiration, the neurotic need for personal achievement, the neurotic need for self sufficiency and independence, and the neurotic need for perfection and unassailability. And so, um, I've kind of grouped them when I went through and I was reading, I was like, oh my gosh, each one of these um, is pretty much specific to a type. It's like one of the conditions for the type. The only one that didn't really fit any one type was the need for prestige. And I could fit it into pretty much all of them. So we're going to work with it as being one of the universal neuroses, the need for prestige.
How does she define prestige?
So the
Or
need
does
for
she do the
prestige,
academic thing where she doesn't define it at all?
it does get defined. And the
Okay.
thing is, it sounds kind of three-ish and kind of four-ish and all the other ones, but I felt like personal achievement and personal admiration, all the other ones fit a specific type better. But I can read the neurotic need for prestige. So, quote, individuals with a need for prestige value themselves in terms of public recognition and acclaim, material possession, personality characteristics, professional accomplishments, and loved ones are evaluated based on prestige value. These individuals often fear public embarrassment and loss of social status. So this does, um, it does kind of lean a little more three, or maybe even a little more four or eight. But once we get in and discuss a little bit more about the other ones and the other definitions for all the other ones are like spot on, like this is type 3, this is type 4. Whereas this prestige, I can work it into any of the other groups. Like
Hmm.
I like the martyrdom of twos, the need to appear good and perfect in ones. Um, uh Sixes disintegrating to three and also needing to look good for to attract approval from authority figures, um
Hmm.
all of it. So that one just didn't fit one specific group, and also it's not a perfect thing for the Enneagram. Like it's not always a perfect fit because she didn't design this for the Enneagram.
Right.
So, and that's another thing to keep in mind is that this has been adopted over. And so anyone can experience any of these neuroses, even more so than when we're talking about other Enneagram types. Um, because it's not about the Enneagram. Um, so, um, oh, you have a note here. I'll let you read it.
Oh, um,
You don't have to read it if
is
you don't
that
want
is
to.
that stuff below?
It's the this part here.
Oh, I do. I forgot that I put that in there.
Yeah, I have a note.
I was reading this source, and this is gonna lead into some really weird shit here when we start talking about this website that I found. Um, but this guy was talking about how the way that people interact with the Hornevian triads also maps to base human instincts in the like fight or flight or submission.
Mm,
Um, and the problem is not necessarily that we have those instincts, but it's that we've overdeveloped and sort of utilized them in situations where they don't actually serve us and forgotten how to utilize other versions of that. So similar to other ways of being in the Enneagram, where it's like you really just went hard in one direction and
mm.
forgot to develop all the other tools in your tool belt.
So almost like
Um,
the social, sexual, and
right.
self-pres.
And that sort of towards people, away from people, against people is a like a reflection of some of those instinctual things as well.
Interesting.
But the other wild thing about this website, which by the way, so this is a website that I found by Googling, because you can find everything by Googling. It's called Enneagram Spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And the title is Karen Horney's Three Trends. It's written by this guy, and he starts talking about the Hornevian Triad stuff, but he goes into this resource called The Enneagram: A Journey of Self-Discovery. It was written in 1984 by Maria Biesing, Bob Nogasek, and Pat O'Leary.
Mm-hmm.
And they claim that there's sort of two different axes that you can put all of the types on. And that's how they interact with like the ego consciousness of the
Oh yeah.
Enneagram, that is the self concepts and the preferred modes of behavior. So what I got really confused on, because if you look at the table, we can put it in the
Yeah.
show notes. It's this big table about the sort of how do I view myself on one end, and then how do I react to others on the other.
Yeah. They mixed
And
up some.
the thing is, I'm bigger than the world. I must adjust to the world, or I'm smaller to the world for the self-conception, and then the aggressive dependent withdrawing for the how you interact with others. And the weird thing is that if you look, I don't think we've talked about object relations yet, but
We
if you
have
look at
not
the
yet.
columns, they map directly to object relations, which we'll get into later, which is how do you react with objects. And then if you look at the rows, they almost directly map to the Hornevian triads, except they've swapped the 1 and the 7. So the aggressive is 8, 3, 1. The dependent is 2, 6, 7. And the withdrawing is 5, 9, 4. So the withdrawing, that's an agreement. But I'm just so interested because I went and looked at, like, I couldn't find the actual book,
Mm-hmm.
but I had like a preview of it. And yeah, they claim that the aggressive types are 8, 3, and 1, and that the dependent types or compliant are 2, 6, and 7,
Hmm.
which is so weird and interesting.
It's
Is
weird
that
and I don't like it.
is that a misconception of like what ones and sevens really want?
Maybe?
Or is
I
that
mean, I get because like the ones do their stuff to achieve like autonomy. So I get how someone could come off like a one someone might think a one would be the aggressive type, but they're really not because they're caving to the will and
social
need of
pressure?
yeah, they're caving to social pressure. And so it's not aggressive. They're not fighting against really anything. They're fighting to preserve the
Sevens have never met social pressure in their entire fucking life.
yeah. I don't I don't know if I agree with this and I don't know I need to read this source for to see if I agree more. But I don't know that I agree to the I am bigger than the world. I feel smaller than the world. In fact, I feel compressed by the world. I feel like the world's needs are too much and I am just one small being and yeah. So I don't know that I agree with the like I see that they're matching up with the object relations,
Right.
but I don't know that my object relations would be that I'm bigger than the world. So I'm going to take a look at this and I think we can discuss it um a lot more in the next episode, but I don't know. Okay.
Anyway, that's my sort of
Yeah.
aside
Yeah.
going down a rabbit hole of what's going on?
Yeah.
I for a minute I was like, this wait, something's not right. And I was trying to figure out if they had just made like a whole new triad.
Yeah.
And it looks like they did. They just or they intentionally have like changed the Hornevian triad, but they're not. It's specifically about Karen Horney's three trends
Yeah. And this one
and the
seems
Enneagram.
This one is it's the page is attributed to Jerome Wagner, who has a PhD.
Or,
So
it's the internet,
he's
so
that's true. That's
who
true.
knows if he has a PhD, really?
Um, yeah, I will look that up. And oh, he also has sources. Oh, and he has an
It's a
edu
pretty,
email. It looks legit, but I
it's pretty
disagree with this
extensive.
thing. Yeah. Okay, so
So,
next episode we'll discuss this more in depth.
yeah,
Because
it's
I would need to dig into this a little bit more. I need to research it.
keep in mind part of the thing about Karen Horney not actually working with the Enneagram specifically
Mhm.
is that these things might come up where people interpret stuff one way, someone else interprets it another way, and none of them are necessarily wrong in the sense that Karen Horney hasn't said no, because I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure she was born in the 1800s and is probably dead now. But
I don't think
um,
she was that old.
I think she was doing her work in like the 1930s, right?
Let me see.
She was born in 1885, dear.
Oh.
She died in 1952.
Oh, yeah. You're right. You're right.
So, yeah, she's not saying anything about whether people are right or wrong now
Yeah.
at this point. People are just sort of taking her theories and trying to mesh it with things.
Yeah.
So,
Um, but yeah.
you're gonna get different things. Sometimes you might get whole different triads and have to reevaluate your whole life.
Yeah. I don't know that I agree with this one. But anyway. All right. So, um uh as we are talking, the general breakdown of the groups, maybe not completely agreed upon, is that the compliant or conditional, and Gad's term, are the ones, twos, and sixes. The withdrawn groups are the fours, fives, and nines. And the aggressive or assertive groups are the three, seven, eights. And yeah. So this month we're talking about the compliant or conditional group. So basics of the conditional group now, and the compliant groups. So they need approval and acceptance and affirmation from others, and especially people that they have put into authority positions. Um, they need the approval, acceptance, and affirmation from them to feel secure. And they achieve this through different ways. You have some notes here, or maybe those are
Right.
mine. No, those are yours.
Uh, yes. So, and this is working. Um, I think I mentioned earlier that ANGAD has that conditional term, and I kind of like that because it helped me understand
Hmm.
like compliance. Because I don't know if I've ever met a one that was like truly compliant,
No.
because they all have their own idea about how to do things. And the
Hmm.
same things with twos and sixes, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's not like I'm gonna go along with what you want me to do necessarily. It's um I have an idea of what needs to get met before my needs can get met,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I I think this is maybe a talking point because for me that feels pretty transactional in terms of like if I do this, then this.
Hmm. They do get to have a sort of transactional feel to the relationships. Um, I have another note on why they are deemed compliant. And so the compliant term comes from the fact that they are compliant to their own super egos. So, quote, that means they are always reflecting on their self critical conscience to tell them what the right decision or action may be. Above all, they feel the need to earn what they want. So they feel that no matter what, in order to get anything, they need to earn it. They need to do something, again with that transactional point. And so conditional or compliant um is why they're there, which is why I like this more. I like the setup with the ones in the compliant group more than I like them in the aggressive group, because they're not actively fighting against people to get their needs met, or I don't know. But yeah. And so the compliant group moves towards people in hopes of earning what they desire. For ones, that's autonomy. For twos, it's attention. And for sixes, it's security. Do you have
Hmm.
anything to add?
No,
Because I have
I
more notes.
wonder. I wonder if our question, it would have been interesting to ask them about how they feel about earning things and not like suffering necessarily, but like earning.
Well, I think that's why I thought the twos and ones and sixes would say, yes, you need to suffer, because it is a direct transactional. I must suffer in order to become better. So I
To
need
earn.
to, yeah, I need to put in my suffrage miles, my suffering miles, in order to be a good person.
Open up a frequent flyer miles account with suffering.
Yes.
Cash in those rewards
Because
points.
when you view suffering as an important part of the human existence, it can only really be viewed in that transactional way, because it's like you can't get anything for free. You can't get empathy for free. You can't get humility for free. You got to
Mm.
suffer to earn it.
What what do they do when people do like random acts of kindness? Do they just not know how to do that? Do they just like,
Mine too hates it.
is it like, you know, those things that's actually super fucking annoying for the Starbucks barista where they're
Oh
like,
yeah.
I want to pay for the drink of the guy in the next car. And
Yeah.
then like the two or the one or the six drives up and then they're like, here, someone paid for your drink. And they're like, no, 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 I can't take that. I have to suffer first. I'm sorry.
Well, it's interesting when you put it like, so for random acts of kindness, my two and I have very different approaches. Um like I will put in the work for strangers, you know?
Mhm.
Like I will do it and she'll be like, Why? Like why are you doing this?" So like there was this one time, like we found keys in the like in a parking lot. And so what I did is I used the keys to like do the alarm, so that I found their car and I left a note on their car and was like, "I'm turning these in." I think it was at the courthouse, and I was like, "I'm going to turn them into the courthouse.
Mhm.
You can get your keys there." And KJ was like, "I don't know why we can't just leave the keys on the hood of the car." And I was like, "Because
Someone's gonna steal their car.
yeah, someone might break into their car or steal their car. And I don't want to
Someone
just
would
turn
definitely
them
take
into
that
the"
car.
and I was like, "And I don't want to just turn them into the courthouse, because this parking lot was shared by a couple different buildings." And so I was like, if I turn them into the courthouse and they think they're at the bank or they think they're somewhere else, then they could wander around for hours. So I'm going to leave the note and I'm going to turn them in. And KJ was like, it's too much effort for nothing. And I was like, what? And then KJ also mentioned like, are you doing this because you think they'll like give you a reward or something? Or I forget how she phrased it. She denies having said this, but I distinctly remember it because I was very offended. um,
Because so see that's interesting. I can see um like a very different reaction for that though too, because I think that there's like the social constructs of like what's good ethical behavior or what's things that you should do could also push like ones and sixes to do the opposite and be like, oh, I have to go do this now.
yeah, I don't know. Because I don't see my siblings doing that either. It's more
You
like,
know what? That's I I say this, I'm talking up once a lot, but I do have the distinct memory of okay, before we were living in this apartment, we lived in a place that had a lot of this was I think the spring, and they had just there was a lot of trees on our block, and we were taking a walk, me and my partner. And they had just cut down some tree limbs, and we found like a baby squirrel that's just crawling along on the sidewalk. Like it crawled towards us, that guy's super fucking little because he hasn't figured out big human scary yet. And we put him in a box and like rushed him over to the wildlife sanctuary. That was like a good hour and a half of our day, and like we kind of like went out of our way to go do that, right? And I told my family group chat later, and my sister was like, "Why would you do that?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" It's like I'm just not gonna leave like a baby squirrel there to fucking die. Like what? And she was like, "But it's a squirrel. Why do you care?" And I was like, "I don't know."
I yeah, I don't think that ones, twos, or sixes have a internal drive. Okay, that's maybe wrong, maybe too harsh. But I feel like a lot of their internal drive to be good is strictly centered around what it can get them, you
Uh-huh.
know? I that's probably a little harsh. Um,
Or I think it's restricted in some ways to like people that they've put
mhm,
in that category of like, so for twos, for example, it's not like twos aren't very like generous, giving people who will go out of their way for folks, like
mhm,
they are. It's just that there's very specific people that they will do it for. And
mhm,
that's people who they want to return that,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And for, sixes, I think it's more about the like maintenance of the order and the like security, right?
Mhm.
And then for the ones, it's about like the who is deemed in the in group. Is that for all of them? It's about the in group. Like who's in your
Yeah.
in group?
It's
Who are my
very like
people?
um yeah, transactional.
Yeah,
It's
that's it.
transactional again.
That's
It's
just
just
it's a transactional thing.
yeah. Ones, twos, and sixes, email us if we're being too harsh and defend
We
yourselves.
probably are
I mean, that's the thing though.
being so mean.
I'm gonna get I'm gonna get bashed too when we do fives, and oh, we get to bash each other for fives and nines with the withdrawn.
Oh yeah. I feel like we should invite other people on. We should like invite our partners on to tell us about how horrible we are at being people,
Oh.
right?
Yeah.
Or we could just talk ourselves up the whole time.
Yeah,
We
let's
could just be
just
like, "Oh yeah, this is obviously the best triad to be in. We've never done anything wrong in our entire lives."
So, I have two more quotes, and then we can move on to the distinct types if you want.
Yes.
Okay, so these two more quotes about like compliant triad as a whole. Um, so quote, I have three quotes actually, but one's just very short. So quote, they consciously or unconsciously assume they are better than others. And quote, these numbers are often recognized for being of service to other people. They are often on the lookout for the greater good. They like to follow the rules and live up to social norms. And quote, they are balanced to prefer the feeling and doing centers. They are compliant to the demands of the superego and the most out of touch with their own quiet minds. So the compliant group likes to work a lot with feeling and doing centers. So yeah, which
Yeah, so fives and sevens are just like not
yeah, yeah, don't vibe with
interesting.
them as much. Which it is interesting because I do like ones. I get along with ones fairly well, and I'm in a relationship with the two. But we definitely like there can be those issues of like, you know, I don't know. Okay, so moving on to
Well,
type 1. So, going back to Karen Horney's theories and the neurotic needs, I've paired the one up with the neurotic need for perfection and unassailability. And the quote for this is, these individuals constantly strive for complete infallibility. A common feature of this neurotic need is searching for personal flaws in order to quickly change or cover up these perceived imperfections. Um, so, what do you think about that? Do you think that matches ones very well?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting that the change or cover up, because it's like the instinct is, can I fix this? And if I can't fix it, then I have to pretend like it's not there.
Yes. And that's what really stuck with me about this one is and I it can work for a couple different other ones, but this one is mainly like I read it and I was like ones. Um,
Yeah.
so some of my other quotes, we'll just get them out of the way so that we can discuss more. Quote, um, for Enneagram 1, their primary drive is control. Their social stance is often one that, if they follow the rules and do what is right, they can achieve what they want. They often find themselves in positions of authority. If they walk into an event or situation that is disorganized, they immediately notice how it would be better if they were in charge.
Hmm.
And they seek to comply to their super egos, to search out their own autonomy and to achieve their own autonomy. If they are perfect, I it the thought is if I'm perfect, I can do whatever I want, basically.
Right. It's that unassailability,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Because like the perfection itself, I think perfection for the sake of perfection is not really like what the ones really are after, even
mhm,
though we call them the perfectionist. It's more about being invulnerable to rebuke.
yes. And if you are invulnerable to rebuke, then you can just do whatever you want.
Right. Yeah.
So,
No
um
one can get mad at you if you're perfect.
yeah, cuz you're doing everything right.
Exactly.
Um I don't have much more to add for this group.
Yeah.
I don't have any stories that can equate this. But yeah, basically ones they comply with social norms and comply to
Mm.
their ego's need.
I think the what you see in like stress
Mhm.
when is and I'm curious if this is something common throughout all of the types, but for ones in particular, the thing of like, oh, well, they can judge other people like they judge themselves.
Mhm.
It's like the externalizing of the internalized social norms,
Mhm.
right? Um, and I think that that's like, uh, what do you do when you don't get what you want? Like, if you're following the rules, but you're still not getting what you want, then you just like reinforce the fact that the rules should be followed instead of questioning whether the rules are actually serving you.
Mm, yes, agreed. Would you like to move on to twos?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and just read through all my quotes and we can discuss them again. If it'll load. Okay. Um, okay. So type twos. Twos comply to the social norms and everything for attention. That's the primary need that needs to be met. Um, and quote, the Enneagram 2 is in search of identity and acceptance. Often labeled the helper, they seek to get what they want by jumping to the assistance of someone else. People in this group often seem like they want to fly under the radar, but they can also assume the martyr role if no one recognizes or appreciates them for their actions. So, the
Now,
neurotic, huh?
I will put, I will sprinkle in the fact that you can't be a martyr without suffering. So maybe, an emphasis on suffering is less about suffering for the sake of suffering, but suffering for the sake of becoming a martyr.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry,
Uh,
twos. Um, the truth is, you're not better for having suffered. That's just blanket.
well, you're not better for being a martyr either.
Yeah. Um,
There's no better or worse out of it. It just is.
yeah.
I say that like I have all the fucking answers and stuff. Okay, I'm just
Yes.
gonna. I'll go back into my hole.
All right. So the neurotic need that I've assigned, and once again, this is me assigning them. I don't know of any other group that has put each of these needs to a type. Um, ooh, book topic. We should write a book about this.
Book topic about what?
I should write a book about how the neurotic needs are, um, how they relate to each type.
That's
Should,
this is it. When
mhm.
I was saying all of those people should go write books, I really meant you, Maddie. You should write a book. I will cheer for you.
Okay. So for type 2, I assigned the neurotic need for affection and approval. Quote, this need includes the desire to be liked, to please other people, and to meet the expectations of others. People with this type of need are extremely sensitive to rejection and criticism and fear the anger or hostility of others.
Hmm.
I think this fits twos a lot. Because even though, okay, so it may not seem like what was the part here? Where's the quote? Um it may not seem like they are afraid of anger and hostility and stuff, but the thing is they just deflect. They deflect when other people are angry. They go to 8 and get angry too. And they're like, you can't be angry. I'm angry. I'm the martyr.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's it's like they want to gather. I think it's interesting that they don't have like they don't go to the head type people as much, or they don't have that connection to the head type. Because for me, it seems like they're gathering evidence or data based
Hmm.
on what they're doing for why people should like them or give them things or like offer them security.
Hmm. But the problem with that is that they then have to present their evidence to a head type
So,
person.
so
And the head
oh,
type person is
that's
like, but you missed this part. And they're like, but no, I didn't miss it. And they want to put their blinders up. And so they
so
want to go to the action and the feeling oriented people because they can, like, the feeling
trick
people,
us.
yeah, they're going to trick you. They're going to try and trick you.
Whereas-
Whereas the head types are going to be more skeptical of this
Uh,
supposed data that they,
that's You know what? That's fair. I don't ask a lot of questions. I'm just like, okay, cool.
yeah. I see. I remember everything. I have detailed notes, and they could be like, "Oh, but why is this happening?" Like, I've always been nice to them, and I'll be like, "On July 23rd, you called them a bitch. You weren't always nice to them."
Interesting. So it challenges their self-image,
Yeah.
um, to be around people who are gathering all the data and not just the data that fits.
Hmm.
Well, because I think what's also interesting about um that like the okay, 6 is kind of an outlier here, right? Because ones are in the body and twos are in the heart, and sixes are just funky because they're in the triad of death.
Hmm.
Um, but like, okay, I'm on the edge of something. Hold on, let me just formulate my thoughts. It's interesting that they're more oriented towards body, which is about the identity, and the heart, which is about emotions. Because I think the primary way that ones, twos, and sixes operate is that like the way they construct their self-image in other people is like presenting themselves as who they think they are, which is the identity bit, right? And then also making you feel a certain way about that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if that was as major of a breakthrough as I was thinking it was going to be, but there's something there about the missing connection to the head, which is, it's just the same things that you were saying all along. It's okay. I
Okay.
just got around to it now. My brain just caught up. So I'm here now. I'm with us. It's great to be here.
All right. That's all I have for twos. Do you want to move on to sixes?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, sixes um comply to their ego and social norms for security. Quote, Enneagram 6 is looking for safety and security and therefore are more prone to feelings of inferiority than ones and twos. Their
Mm,
feelings of being better than other people often stem from being part of a larger group they identify with. For example, they take pride in belonging to a certain political party or coming from a certain city. They often achieve what they want by leaning into the group's definition of right and wrong. And so this I teamed six up with the neurotic need for a partner who will take over one's life. And the quote is, this involves the need to be centered on a partner. People with this need suffer extreme fear of being abandoned by their partner. Oftentimes, these individuals place an exaggerated importance on love and believe that having a partner will resolve all of life's troubles.
I'm going to expand on this by sometimes that partner is not a person.
Yes, it's like it said.
Sometimes the partner is an institution
Hmm. Or the
or a set
organization
of an
or
organization, a set of beliefs,
political party,
um,
a certain city.
political party. Yep. Like,
Um,
yeah. It doesn't just mean that they're like really into committed relationships.
mhm. Though I will say, okay, I might not be the best because I probably have a biased take on sixes in relationships. Am
I
I
know
gonna
where this
get
is
in?
going.
Am I gonna get into my family drama? I might get into my family drama. Okay, so both of my siblings are Marines, and they very quickly got married. As in, my sister met her partner in like June of what was it, 2019, and then got engaged in August of 2019. And they were going to get married very quickly, but they had to wait because he got sent to Italy and got trapped over there because coronavirus closed the borders. And so they got married after a year. It was barely a year. My brother, this is the current family drama, he met a girl around 4th of July and then got married in August. And I have not met her. I've not talked to her. I've not been a part of any FaceTimes. And yeah, so they jump into relationships very quickly. Get that strong, like committed, monogamous, I need that commitment. And they both have they have very weird concepts about relationships, which I know I've talked about some of them, but like loyalty is up there. Like my sister, the reason she okay, I think I'm pretty sure I've talked about this before, but briefly again to recap. My sister believes that every partnership or every relationship, one person is the cheater, okay? And so um what happens is in any relationship that she's in, she wants to be quote the cheater, which is the cheater is the person who will cheat first if the relationship starts to go downhill. And so this gives her security because if she thinks she's the cheater, if she thinks she's the one who's more likely to cheat in the relationship, then she knows that if she's not cheating, her partner's not cheating. Um and so
That's
yeah,
so fucked up.
I
And
know.
also, like, the six in me is also just like, yeah, but like, Uh, like, okay, this is gonna sound really bad.
I'm ready.
I'm like, in every relationship I've ever been in, I've been the cheater there, you know? And that if you're putting me in that dichotomy, because I'm just like, I would never assume that someone else would do it, you know? And that's like so much more nerve-wracking for me, because then I'm just gonna be like, well, shit, you know? Like I couldn't imagine living with that as a framework, because then I would be like, ah, fuck. Damn it, I'm the cheater, you know? Like, because like why would I be with someone if I didn't trust them like implicitly? So
Well, that's how sixes get their trust, you know? They want
is
to be they have
it's
almost
the
like a
verify?
they have almost like a need to be the worst partner in the relationship. It's like they need their partner to be better so that they have that security, you know? They want the partner to be better so that they have that safety rope, they have that security. And that allows them to
Oh,
be worse. It means that when they
yeah,
make
see,
mistakes, it's fine because there's that other person that's there to catch them. But that's also why they let people kind of take over their life. And it's not necessarily that like so it relates back to this neurotic need of like they need to be centered on a partner because their partner
mhm,
becomes their entire focus because they are basing their entire like perception of reality really against this other person's actions, and they're like, this person is better than me so I feel safe, and then they have a fear of being abandoned, but if they're the abandoner, you know,
mhm.
then they can put that on someone else that they won't be abandoned.
Oh,
It's
no, it
it's a like
I this is why sixes integrate to nines, because it's the opposite for me.
mhm,
My fear is the I'll get in over my head and I won't be able to like
dip.
back out of it. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that's the commitment issues of the
It's
nine,
because we're
right?
the withdrawn type.
It's the withdrawn thing, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like for me, this is why I'm like, oh shit, I'm the cheater, because it's about the fundamentally that dynamic is about the withdrawal.
Mhm,
And like that makes sense because sixes are moving towards people.
mhm,
We're withdrawing from people, right?
yeah.
So for them, they want to be with someone who's like, hold on. Is it like moving towards someone who's also moving towards them?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Um, because
Or is
it's
it the movement towards people that's the like enticing part of it?
it's moving towards people is the enticing part of it. And
Mm,
the thing is, it's the security of knowing like you're choosing people who you know won't move away because you even though they're not the withdrawn type, you
hmm.
know, they want to be the one who would be the one to withdraw.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's kind of so the neurotic need for a partner who will take over one's life, even though they're abandoning that control, they're still keeping the power. It's like
Hmm.
in dom and sub relationships
Hmm.
where like yes, the dom is the one in charge, but the sub still has the power to say no. And so they hold the like enticing power of like I'm going to let you do this, but it's the dom's like responsibility to make sure that the sub is enjoying themselves, you know? It's that same balance of power of like I'm going to center everything on you, but
Hmm.
in turn you then have to take like care of me. It's they're never losing power.
So sixes are just super kinky is what I'm getting.
Yes. Yes.
Ah, okay, good. Good,
Mhm.
good.
It's control through loss of control.
Feel like sixes and eights would just get along like a house on fire.
I think they do. Cuz looking back at it, like a lot of my siblings friends were eights. or had an 8 wing.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of like the bosses that they've liked over time were 8s. Because it's that sense of like 8s are so, or at least generally 8s are so secure in themselves and confident and stuff like that. And so a 6 can latch onto that and be like, I can ride their wave of confidence and I don't have to think for myself, kind of. Or not even think for myself is not a good term for that. I take that back. It's I don't have to be the good one. I don't have to be the perfect one.
Mm,
Yeah. That's all I have on 6s. Do you have anything else to add?
interesting. Um, no, I'm very interested about this security and partner relationship and the being the cheater thing. Because I think it's, I like a lot of people, I am self-centered. And so I love talking about sixes because I disagree to six because it's like talking about myself.
Mhm. I don't have much of a connection to my 6 wing. Should
You
really,
start developing it.
I need to start developing it, but there's never any time.
You live with a two, just let the two take care of
I can't do that.
it.
That's actually one of our like that's been one of our more recent fights is that my 2 feels like I don't let them do anything and that I take
Hmm.
care of them too much. Cuz like the thing is I have more time at home. Like my schedule is less demanding. So
Hmm.
I make dinner for us pretty much every night because I'm the one who gets home in time to do that. And like
Hmm.
usually when I'm cooking, I'll go ahead and make my lunch for the next day. And I'm like, well, they need a lunch too, so I might as well. Like I'm here, I'm doing it. And KJ has recently been like, you can't make me lunches anymore because it makes me feel bad because I'm not doing that for you, kind of. Or I guess that's my understanding of it. KJ will probably listen to this and be like, no, that's not that's not how I feel. But yeah. So I'm no longer allowed to make KJ lunches anymore, which in it uh, I don't know what the right word is because like I'm there, I'm in the kitchen, and I'm like I could do it right now, it'd be fine, and then we could have more time to hang out later, and so it's fine, but I can't do it now.
This is, you're like Alyssa.
I don't know, and KJ just doesn't eat at work sometimes, and I'll be like, it stresses me out because I'm like, you're gonna get hangry, or you're just not eating. Like you can't not eat. Like let me just make you this lunch, take it. But I can't. I'm we got off on a tangent there. I don't even know where
We
we were.
did. We're deep in the weeds now.
Okay. So you
The
want to
next
wrap up?
section is advice, but
Oh, that's right.
I don't know if we're qualified to give it.
Yeah, this is advice that I found other people giving. And I don't know if they're qualified
Okay.
or not, but
A
I'll
little
just
bit of a disclaimer. It's from
yeah.
the internet, so it
Yeah.
must be right.
But yeah. So here are some quotes. Oh wait, here. Um Compliant groups have a hard time relaxing and may feel superior to others, although this may not be evident. So, Um, compliant groups. Learn to let go of your sense of superiority. Observe yourself when you are with others. Notice the judgments you make about them. Also, notice how you accommodate yourself to others and lose your own point of view. So, that was the advice from this one
Hmm.
website. I forget what it is. Links will be in the show notes. I think that is good advice for just anyone. So, maybe take it. I don't know. I don't tell you how to live your life.
Stop accommodating yourself to our point of view.
Yes. Don't take our advice right now. Don't do it. All right. So, wrapping up. Our question of the month for our next episode is going to be for the assertive types. So that's going to be the 3s, the 7s, and the 8s. Anyone else, feel free to email us or tweet us your answers as well because we take them into account. So, question: assertives. What tactics do you use when you're having trouble getting what you want? So you've already used your regular tactics and they failed. What do you do now? All right. Email or tweet us your answers. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
I